They always seem a way to make it interesting even at the end of the season. Welcome to Starcastic Remarks. My name is Ryan. This is the after game review for the final game of the 21-22 season. Stars do take the win tonight by a final score of 4-2, but there are much more storylines coming out of tonight's game that we will obviously get to. But first off, we want to thank our sponsors right up there in the top corner up there, DraftKings Sportsbook, for being our sponsor, not just of our podcast, but of the entire Hockey Podcast Network. Go and use that promo code THPN, please. We really appreciate that. And we're going to bring in Chris here tonight. I thought this was going to be just a boring game and just, whatever and all that sort of stuff. But it actually ended up being a game that was fun to watch because of many different reasons, right?
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. I mean, the Stars still kind of have something to play for. The off chance that Arizona beats Panthers, the Predators, which is not happening right now. Last time we checked, it was 4-1. But still, we saw three different goalies. One goalie who doesn't play professional hockey, and we only scored 3 goals somehow. Still, one on each. No, that's a lie. We didn't score any on the first one.
Nope, we did not. So John Gibson would exit the first period. Stolars would exit the second period. And in comes 28-year-old Thomas Hodges, who is now the story of the night and possibly of the whole NHL night, to be honest with you, because I don't think anybody saw this coming. It was very strange to see that happen. I don't think I've ever seen that in a Dallas Stars game before. Obviously, there's the famous David Ayers, who came in for the Carolina Hurricanes. He was the E-Bug, the emergency backup goalie for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he happened to get in the game for Carolina and spent a majority of the game for the Hurricanes, made about 8 or 9 saves, and actually became the first E-Bug to win a game in the National Hockey League. I think he won it 6-3. So, I mean, unfortunately for Thomas Hodges, that would not be the case for him tonight. But he got a lot of help from the Anaheim Ducks there in the third period playing defensively. What did you think about Thomas Hodges' play there in the third period? Kind of fun, right?
He made 2 out of 3 saves. That's pretty good. The bigger thing is how bad the Stars played in that third period. They might have been going easy on him a little bit, but man, he only got 3 shots on goal.
Yeah, and really that third shot was what was funny is it wasn't even Thomas Hodges' fault. It deflected off of it. It got deflected off of Schuster's stick and just happened to careen 5-hole. So I mean, you can't even hold the one goal he gave up against him because it was.
So as far as I'm concerned, he has a 1,000 save percentage
instead of a .667. That's unfortunate, but I mean. Anything else from tonight's game that you thought was of good things, bad things for the Stars or for the Anaheim Ducks in this case?
It's good to see Thomas Harley score. That could be a big thing that comes into play in the playoffs. I mean, it kind of always happens that one guy who wasn't really producing in the regular season just starts doing it in the playoffs. I mean, I remember Vern Fiddler. When we played the Ducks in that first round, he just all of a sudden became a goal scorer out of nowhere, which was crazy fun to watch. But, I mean, keep an eye out. The Stars have a lot of sleeping giants that might get woken up by the playoffs. Harley might be one. I mean, he is an offensive-minded defenseman. I mean, at least that's what his scouting report says, so who knows?
Well, and I loved how honest he was in his post-game interview with Michelle. He said he's just finally glad to get it out of the way because, he hadn't scored a goal in the AHL or the NHL this season, which is very, very strange for him. And honestly, he fits right in with the Dallas Stars because there's a lot of players who wish they had scored more this season. So, I mean, you could do a whole list of players who you wish would score more. Foxa, Ben, Garyanov. I mean, even to some extent, Glendening, you wish he would score more too. But that's just been a thing with the Dallas Stars this season is that they just can't score goals and they're not getting any kind of offensive output from not just their middle six or bottom six forwards, but they're also not getting it from their defensemen. And that was actually one of the storylines coming out of tonight's game is the fact that I guess Nah, that's a stupid way of saying it. Anyway, the Hanley Harley, that's hard to say quick because there's one letter difference. But between the two of them, they both score goals for the Dallas Stars tonight. And really, that first line for the Dallas Stars didn't really score for the Dallas Stars tonight. I know Robo scored on the power play, but still, it's whatever. But uh, tell me there's an obvious biggest winner in tonight's game that we could give it to, but give it to a less obvious one. Give me a biggest winner and a biggest loser in tonight's game.
Biggest winner, we're going to go for depth defense. And that's something we're going to need in the playoffs. I think that's why some of the more depth guys have gotten cycled into games recently, too, is because the playoff comes around, there's going to be injuries. I mean, we know that's going to happen. Our depth guys came in, played really well, and I'll add to that Kiviranta. I mean, Kiviranta played a great game tonight, forechecking all over the ice. He kind of led to that first goal for the Stars, too. So the depth could be a big factor going into the playoffs, honestly. Oh, Ryan?
I don't know what happened there. I think you got lost there for a second, Chris. Anyway, what were you saying?
My biggest winner? You didn't hear any of it?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Okay, great. The biggest winner I put as our depth defense. Harley and Hanley both scored a goal tonight, and then I added Kiviranta in there too. Even he played a really good game. He kind of led to that first goal. But just overall, recently we've seen a lot more of our depth guys play just in the past, like I'd say 3 games, and they've done pretty well. Radulov had a lot of chances tonight too, and I think depth is going to be a big key to the playoffs. People get hurt all the time in the playoffs. Guys who we don't think are going to have to play are going to have to play. So it'll. I think it's good that those guys are playing well when they're called upon, and because we're going to need them.
Do you think that that's something that might change with the playoffs? Players like Radulov coming into their own, because in the 2020 bubble playoffs, he had a really, really big, important part for the Dallas Stars, scoring some really big overtime goals in the 2020 playoffs. I know that he's had a rough season this year. Do you see that possibly changing now that the mindset may be different for some of these players, and the fact that, okay, this is playoffs, this is real, we're fighting for our lives to stay alive, to keep our season alive, and players like Gurianov may show up again, and maybe Raffle will actually score some, and same with Gurianov, and then maybe seeing some of our defensemen score, which is really, in all honesty, what made us successful in the bubble playoffs. Do you think some of that stuff may happen for the Stars?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about with the Harley comment. Like we've got a lot of guys who can really score goals who haven't been, and it always seems like every year when we go into the playoffs, one guy unexpectedly starts scoring a lot. So it's totally possible, and I think likely that at least one of those guys is going to start popping off, and we can get a couple guys going. Who knows? Maybe Nate Seed can figure something out.
Yeah, and we should talk about that as well. The Stars are definitely going to be playing Colorado in the first round. It's not official at this point because currently I believe it's in the second period. It's 4-1, I believe.
Yeah, still 4-1.
It is 100% going to be the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche in the first round of the playoffs. But for me, I had the biggest winner and biggest loser tonight. My biggest winner tonight is actually Yoel Kiviranta. He was a direct component to that second goal that the Stars scored. And if it wasn't for his play there, the Stars don't score that goal that Hanley does.
Yep, and he does that with the lowest time on ice, 9 minutes.
Right, and he was very noticeable in tonight's game. He had a fantastic game. He's been more noticeable for me in the past couple of weeks. And the good thing about him is I haven't seen him do, with defensive deficiencies at all. He's very responsible in his own. He may not be scoring and getting the points like we really need another top 6 forward to get, but he's really starting to show that he can play better. And he's been playing better the past week and a half when, the Stars as a team have not been playing well.
Yep, agreed.
So he's my biggest winner. Biggest loser tonight is I had one. Oh, Radulov. And not because he played bad. He had chance after chance after chance. The guy, like literally, if he had he was in the slot with no goalie in front of him, and Khonshu from Moon Knight was saying, "If you don't make this goal, I'm gonna kill you." he would be killed because he wouldn't make the goal. He just cannot get a goal to save his life at this point, and it's just frustrating to see. Which is what I'm really hoping, turns around
saving
in
them
the
for the
playoffs.
playoffs.
Right, and that's what we're all saying is we're saving it for the playoffs, saving it for the playoffs. But how optimistic are you? Because over here, I'm going to pull up Alex's comment. He makes a really good point. They're making it really hard to be optimistic about the playoffs. Thank you, Alex, for the comment there. Are you feeling optimistic about the playoffs, even though they've had some kind of iffy play the last week and a half?
I guess I'm more optimistic than most 8 seeds would be. Like, I think the Stars have a real chance against Colorado. Uh, we'll lay out a couple reasons for that in a second here, but they play well against Colorado. Our goalies play well against Colorado. I think that Nathan MacKinnon being shut down by Miro for however many games this series goes will be amazing and awesome to watch. And I think if any 8 seed has a chance to beat Colorado, it's us. We have a better chance than the Predators do, without a doubt. I think we have a better chance of beating them than the Blues or Minnesota do, even. So,
oh, really? That's
yeah,
interesting.
I think we have the best chance to beat Colorado. Surprise them in the first round.
Now, the only thing that I would have said that Nashville would have a better chance to beat the Colorado Avalanche than the Stars do, but that has changed recently because we don't know the status of UC Saros for their first round matchup against what it looks like is going to be Calgary. So, I don't see. I really thought that the Predators might have a chance against Colorado or Calgary, but with Saros out, that really hurts them. So that's just a side note there. But anyways, you want to get into this game real quick, and then we'll talk about the playoffs here?
Yeah, sure. Give us the rundown.
Yep, real quick, and we'll talk about it. So, Otter versus Gibson. I thought that would be the whole game. Obviously, it wouldn't be, but Klinger would be out. Hanley is in, Kiwi is in, and then Petey is out. So Peterson goes out in favor of Kiviranta. Klinger comes out with a lower body injury. It looks like he's been dealing with it for a while now, and Hanley takes his spot. So with Klinger being out, Harley was actually put on that side with Ryan Suter, which I thought really suited him. And he got that opportunity in a game that was of non-consequence. So overall, what did you think of Harley's play? I know he got the first NHL goal, but I was a little iffy about his play today. What did you think?
Yeah, I agree. It was a little rough. After the goal, especially, he just started turning over pucks all over the place. So didn't love that. But he's had some very good games, and I think no matter what happens, at some point he's going to get called upon in the playoffs. We'll just see when it happens, and I think he definitely has all the skills and abilities to live up to the challenge.
And specifically, there was one play after he scored the goal that he turned the puck over at the offensive blue line, but he did make a really good play defensively to come back and make up for his own mistakes. So I'll point that out here in a second. But anyways, Anaheim would come out with a deflected shot right off the bat that would go wide. Raffle with a breakaway. He would have two later in the game, but the shot goes wide. He can't score. That's just him. Garyanov with another turnover. It leads to a Zegras shot in the slot. It was a good save by Otter. There was a big hit by Glendening on Drysdale, and Drysdale is not a small dude. He's a big dude. There was a 3-on-1 for Dallas by the top line. A couple of passes would miss, and they would not get a shot off. And then Anaheim would score the first goal of the game. At first, I wrote down that it was Drysdale because Drysdale was originally the one that scored that shot from the slot. It was a slap shot. It would bounce off of actually Max Comtois, and then that would bounce off of Lindell, and then it would go behind Ottinger. So a fluky goal, a freaky goal, puts the Anaheim Ducks up 1-0. What do you think?
It's got to stop. I mean, what the heck? I mean, how is this even happening so often? It's so annoying.
Right, and it's not like the Stars are playing really, 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 really bad defense. It's just a freak accident that seems to happen a lot the last month, even not just the last week and a half, but the last month, where it's bounced. How many goals has Lindell scored against the Dallas Stars? At least
Lindell,
4, right?
Lindell and Glendening combined are like almost double digits.
Yes, exactly, right. And all they're doing is just trying to make defensive plays, but I guess they just need to get out of the way because Well, I can even blame Lindell because he was out of the way. He wasn't even
He
directly
was
in
all the
front
way
of
out of the way.
it. He was just, oh, I feel bad for the guy. But despite that, the Anaheim's leads 1-0. Robo would take a slap shot. Drysdale would take a slap shot. The first of many chances for Radulov. He would miss high in the high slot. It was a good chance for him. About 8 minutes remaining. Schuster would take the first penalty. He would take a hooking call on Kiviranta. So Kiviranta making it really noticeable that he's in the game tonight. Sorry, I'm at a loss for words tonight, guys. And it would be the first power play for Dallas. There were absolutely no shots on this power play, and it was a really terrible power play just in general. That first power play. What do you think?
I agree with all the things you said.
There was more zone time than Anaheim for the Stars in the first period, but they just weren't shooting the puck. That was a frustrating thing for me.
That
And
was
I,
super
I, I think,
frustrating.
and I was thinking about this through the first intermission, and I was thinking if something needs to change between the regular season and the playoffs is the fact they need to just throw the puck at the net because they're trained to look too many times for the perfect pass or the perfect option, and it's not there. The only time it's there is for the first line. So
Lots of players. I feel like it's lots of players individually need to decide to shoot more. So I
that's
think
a
Vic
good
needs to
point.
shoot more. He needs to lean on a wrister and not just play his in front sourdough game that he plays. Sagan needs to shoot way more. Miro needs to shoot more. Gurianov
Ben.
needs to shoot every chance he gets. Lots of guys just individually need to decide to shoot instead of pass because they should be goal scorers and they still have that gene in them somewhere.
And I'm starting to see some of the cycle game out of the Dallas Stars, especially from the bottom two lines that I like. But what's happening is that those three forwards, they're doing some really good work down deep in the corners, and they're getting it up to the point, and then the defensemen just either they got to find some way to where the shot's not going to get blocked as easy, or they just need to shoot it quicker and find a way to get it on net because that's the way that the Stars, especially those bottom lines, that's how they're going to get those goals. They're not going to be pretty goals like that top line does. They're going to be dirty, greasy, nasty looking goals off of rebounds and stuff like that.
And
And
that's
that's the thing
definitely
we
true.
need.
That's definitely true for the bottom two lines too. And that's why I'm liking the kind of three high thing that we're doing. We're cycling three high instead of just dumping it deep like we used to. But we need to cycle three high, and those guys in front of the net need to be more aggressive. You got to make it almost. You have to make the ref call a penalty on you in the slot there because most of the time they'll let anything go. So they need to be a little bit scrappier when they're in front of the net in the slot to get those rebounds and to put more pressure on the goalie because, as we'll talk about in a little bit, Darcy Kemper's going to need some pressure on him.
Well, and I wrote this going with like a minute remaining in the period, but before I could even finish that thought that I just wrote down, Robertson would hit the post, and everybody thinks it goes in for Robertson's 41st of the year, and nobody knew where it went except for like a couple of players, and it happened to bounce out of the zone. So through the first intermission, Anaheim's up 1-0, even though it looked like it would be 1-1 going into the first intermission. Then the storyline begins of the rotating goalie carousel that is the Anaheim Nets. Stolars would go in for Gibson, and I wrote question mark hurt. Not sure what's going on there. But anyways, 1920, there's a chance for the top line. Pavelski was right there in the slot, had a chance. Radulov can't get it out of the zone, and it would lead to extended Anaheim's ozone time. So a not good thing there for Radulov. But he would make up for it about a minute later. He would get a chance in front, and that's his second chance that I've seen that it's like, oh, if he can just get one, just get one more and just get going. I feel like he could really start going, but we haven't seen it this year. About 20 seconds after that, Harley would get his first NHL goal. Congratulations to Thomas Harley on that in the last game of the season off of a 3-on-2 where he comes in late. It's a wrist shot, going against the grain, and it was a really good screen by Gurianov there in front. So I had to give Gurianov some credit there for a good thing that he did after the turnover in the first period. So after that, Hanley would also score to make it 2-1, and after Radulov misses again, which he had a wide open net, and he shot it through Stolars, and it went to the opposite corner of where he was. I mean, like I said, he's got some sort of curse or something on this poor guy. I feel he could have had 3 goals tonight, maybe even 4 if he buries at least one of them. At least one of them, he would have at least 1 goal.
Yeah,
I'm baffled how he didn't score there.
it's
And
amazing.
then I mentioned earlier that Kiviranta was the one that forced the turnover, so we need to point that out for Kiviranta having a really good game for the Dallas Stars. What did you think of either one of those goals?
Uh, they were both good shots. I mean, actually, which is kind of surprising from those two defensemen, but they were good goal scoring plays. I mean, two good shots. Great play by Gurianov in front of the net on the first one. Really loved that. He needs to go to the net more.
And I think the important word you used there was defenseman. We haven't gotten a lot of scoring from defensemen this year, so that was really important. Hopefully, that's a sign of things to come in this series against Colorado, which we'll talk about in a second. Gary would not get wide after a Yanni Hakanpää pass. It was a really good pass by Hakanpää there, and Gary had a really good opportunity there, and he misses it. Otter would make a really good save about 30 seconds later with 10 minutes remaining in the period off of a Dallas Stars turnover. And then Pavelski would have a one-timer. He misses wide. And then again, for the fifth time, I write his name down. Radulov on a 2-on-1 with Glendening. And he decides to shoot it himself. He misses it backhand. And it was a 2-on-1 odd man rush. So, I mean, again, that was one of the biggest storylines for me before the third period happened. And then with 4:19 remaining in the period, Troy Terry, who's had an amazing season for the Anaheim Ducks, would get his 37th of the year. And you can't fault anybody on that. I mean, it was Adam Henrique making an absolutely amazing no-look behind the net pass out to the front. And it was just perfect timing, and they tie the game 2-2.
They're going to be so good in 5 years. I mean,
Yeah, they really
honestly.
will. I mean, they've got Drysdale, who's their Miro Heiskanen. They've got Zegras, Troy Terry, who are obviously their Rope Hintz and Jason Robertson. And then they're gonna have a really good young goalie, I think, coming up. I forget his name. I think he's about 22 right now. He's in the AHL right now, but he's putting up some pretty decent numbers. So we'll see what comes of the Anaheim Ducks, and especially with Getzlaf not returning after this season, he has decided to hang up the skates and he's retired this season. So, but anyway, right before the period ends, Thomas Harley would take a penalty for interference after turning the puck over. So, after the goal that he scored, he kind of maybe got a little cocky there and realized, and I guess decided to take some chances. And unfortunately, it kind of bit him in the butt. So, anyways, going into the second intermission, it would be 2-2, a tie. How did you feel about this game in particular up to that point?
I thought we played the second period really well. And we should have scored a lot more goals, obviously. Uh, I still was confident that we were going to win. I didn't think Anaheim would come out with any kind of will to win, honestly, the last 20 minutes before they get to go to some beach somewhere. But but they definitely had a reason to play when the e-bug came in.
Yeah, and I had no idea that was happening until
I had no idea until the puck dropped.
well, the only time I noticed it was because we started talking about it on this little Stars group chat on Twitter that I'm a part of, and people were starting to freak out like e-bug, and I was like, in where, what game? And they were like, for Anaheim, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, the last 2 games have been so eventful for 2 games that probably absolutely didn't matter. First with the blown 3-0 lead, and then an e-bug in the last period of the regular season. So, anyways, Thomas Hodges, the third goalie for Anaheim in the game, would make his appearance in his first NHL game. He actually was the emergency backup goalie for the Allen Americans back in 2016-17. And I think he played 1 game there. He is actually originally from the Dallas area, but here's the cool thing about him is that he was born in England and he moved to the States when he was 11. So he is a local product. He went to Plano West High School, and he also went to SMU and played club hockey for SMU. So kind of some cool things there about Thomas Hodges and his background as a goalie there. So And to be totally honest with you, the Anaheim Ducks played really, really well defensively in front of him. I think they got 3 shots total on Thomas Hodges. The Stars did throughout the third period, and I mean, one of them was kind of a dribbler into him, which I guess the statisticians gave it to him. But I rarely see that called a shot. But anyways, there's not really much to talk about in the third period other than when Robo scored on the power play, it deflected off an Anaheim stick. It would go underneath Hodges' 5-hole, and he, yeah, I think Robo almost apologetically like celebrated. It kind of looked like. Did you notice that? Your mic went out, Chris. Having a lot of technical difficulties here tonight. Sorry, guys, but anyways, after that goal, the Stars would go up 3-2 off of Robertson's 41st of the season. And then Benoit would have a shot later. It was a really good toe save there by Otter. Shots are 19-18 in favor of Anaheim. And then with a minute remaining, the Stars get an empty net goal. We don't know what those are called. We don't even know what those are, Chris. And Nemestikov seals it for the Stars. 4-2 win to end the season with 98 points. One of the best point seasons they've had in a long time, despite being the second wild card. So I guess you have to have over 100 points to make the NHL playoffs this season. Anything from the third period that you thought was really cool, Chris?
E-Bug is really cool. I love it. The Stars definitely did not try as hard as they could have on the E-Bug, especially on the power play. They were like intentionally not shooting when they had open shots, which is objectively what you should do, so that they would make sure that they don't embarrass the goalie, I think. Just a little conspiracy for you, but they won the game. Who cares?
Yes. So what did you think about Robo's reaction when he scored the goal? Because when he scored the goal, it almost looked like he was like really apologetic when he scored the goal against Thomas Hodges. So did you see that on Robertson's face when that happened?
I didn't notice that, but even if it was probably partially due to his shot was just blocked and it was just deflected. Like it was just lucky.
Yeah. I still remember that one goal he scored that I think it went off of his hand and he looked like he just automatically assumed it
Yeah.
wasn't going to count and then it ended up counting anyways. So
Yeah,
it is
that was
what it
pretty
is.
funny.
But okay, I think it's time to go ahead and get into to look ahead towards the playoffs here, you guys. The Stars will be playing the Colorado Avalanche in the NHL playoffs this season, unless by some miracle the Coyotes are able to defeat the Nashville Predators in regulation. But I currently don't know the score of that game, but let me look this up while I'm doing it. Chris, do you have the score by chance of that game?
Yeah, it's 4-2 now. The Coyotes actually scored one.
Well, they actually scored 2 because at one point it was 4-0. So there's still something there that they could possibly win this game, but it's still very unlikely. But
Very unlikely.
you know, I said that. I also said that against the Stars that they weren't gonna beat the Stars in the last game, and they won 4-3 in overtime. So what do I know? But
So we're gonna do a little mini preview for Stars Colorado. We'll probably do another preview show before the playoffs start, right? You think?
oh
Probably.
sure, yeah,
Oh yeah, we'll definitely do that.
and
But
we'll probably go back over our picks for Western Conference and Eastern Conference again, and maybe have a second chance to look at those and
a little bit more
redecide.
educated.
Yeah, because we just kind of did it off the
Because
seat
you
of our
picked
pants.
Toronto.
I'm still going
Yeah,
with
that's
Toronto.
why. No,
I'm
you're
still going
not.
with
You're a liar.
Toronto.
You tried to back out of it last podcast. Okay, but anyway, real quick here, we're gonna look. I just took a little jotted notes down, just a little bit of boopity boop boop research. So the biggest strengths for Colorado, obviously goals for. They're one of the highest potent offenses in the league. Man, got that one out smooth. They're top 5 in goals for. Obviously, they're crazy. They shoot a ton. They average about 35 shots per game, which is crazy, especially to a Dallas fan. So the number one thing is going to be offense. They're going to try and outscore us. they actually have a pretty high goals against though as well. They are in the lower half by a substantial margin in the goals against category. So they like playing wide open hockey and they like scoring goals. What do you think about that, Ryan?
It's interesting to me because if there's one thing that the Stars could possibly have an advantage in over the Colorado Avalanche, just looking at team, like their offense, no, Colorado wins in that category. Defense, I still think Colorado could possibly win in that category, although it's more equal there, if you ask me. But I think the category that the Stars can really, really, kind of manipulate a little bit is the goaltending, because Darcy Kemper is untested in the playoffs. He's played for Phoenix the last couple of years, and he hasn't had a deep playoff run. So I think if the Stars can really somehow get into Darcy Kemper's head, I think that could give them an edge in the playoffs and maybe get them a win in the series. That's the one thing that I noticed about.
I'm gonna call you out on that one.
Okay,
I
go
think
for it.
that's crazy. His save percentage for the year is top 5.921. His
Okay.
goals against average is 2.54, which is top in the league on a team that allows a crazy amount of shots and a crazy amount of goals. I actually looked it up. Colorado is 23rd in the league in goals against, which is kind of crazy for a team that almost won the President's Trophy. How many wins does he have? There he is. How many wins? 37 wins on the year. That is one of the most. Let me see if anyone's higher. Only Sergei Bobrovsky is higher with 39 wins. So Kemper is one of the best goaltenders in the league and is not talked about enough. And you're talking about untested goaltenders. Who's in our net? Basically a rookie. Jake Oettinger definitely doesn't have any playoffs experience. He barely has a full season of NHL experience under his belt. So if there's a goalie that's going to get rattled, I think Otter is much more likely for that to happen.
But I know he didn't play super well, towards the middle of the season. He had a stretch where he was just kind of meh. He was kind of average. But the last couple of games, I've really seen him come out and be the Jake Oettinger that we saw, when he played against Colorado, when he won that, I think it was a 2-1 game or 1-0 game or something like that. And here's the other thing that I would point to about those stats for Darcy Kemper. Who was the goalie last year for the Colorado Avalanche?
Was it Grubauer?
It was Grubauer. Grubauer is currently in Seattle because he signed a huge contract with them. And I think it was like 5.5 for like 5 or 6 years or something like that. That's not the important thing. The important thing is that he has statistically one of the worst seasons of starting goalies in the past 3 or 4 years. So I don't think that the stats are because of necessarily the goalie. I think Colorado proved when they let Grubauer go that they could take any above average goalie and make his stats look good. And that's my argument there. And now I agree with you on the whole Oettinger thing, because if there's anybody that could get rattled more easily, it's Otter over Kemper. I agree with you 100% there. But the other half of your argument, talking about, Darcy Kemper having these amazing stats like that could be because of the team that he plays on. And for Otter, that's not the case, because even though the Stars have historically been the past couple of seasons a really, 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 really good defensive team, like top 5 in goals against, that has not been the case this season. They're, I think, literally
18th.
mid-pack, like 18th, you said?
18th.
So that's my logic and my reasoning. Does all of that make sense?
Kind of, but man, Colorado's not a good defensive team. I mean, they're a bad defensive team this year. 23rd is pretty bad. And they allow a ton of shots too. So having a save percentage and a goals against average that are that good, with the fact that Colorado's not a great defensive team, seems like he's going to be pretty good, or he has at least been very good this season.
Well, I think you're looking at it wrong, Chris, because the league average for goals against has been 251, and they've given up 228 this season, if I'm looking at it correctly. This is minus their last game or whatever. So I think they're actually in the upper echelon of the NHL when it comes to goals.
I'm on goals against, bro.
Really?
They have 232 goals against.
232. Okay, maybe I'm looking at it wrong. Okay,
Oh no, I did it
regardless.
backwards. No, you're right.
Okay, see, so that's what I was talking about. Yeah. But I mean everything we talked
Well, I'm
about is
embarrassed.
still everything we talked about is still logical though. Because you're right. They're much more offensive team. Now are they as giant offensively as Florida and Toronto? Most definitely not. But they definitely lean towards that side of the game. And this is going to be a really interesting matchup because the Stars are more towards the defensive side of the game. So I'm not so sure what's going to happen with this series, but I think it's going to be really interesting to watch it. But if there's one player that you can think of that really has to make a difference, other than Jake Ottinger, because we already know Jake Ottinger has to be good in order for the Stars to win this series, who has to be the Stars' best player?
Miro Heiskanen. It's going to be Miro Heiskanen's job to shut down Nathan MacKinnon. If he can do that, that gives us the best chance to win. Nathan MacKinnon is one of the best players in the National Hockey League. He somehow is in the top 20 in points percentage when he played a third less games. His points per game played puts him in, I think, the top 5. And yeah, that guy's nuts. He's going to be crazy good. We shut him down when we played him in the bubble playoffs. We'll see if we can do it again. And I think the big thing is going to be just wearing him down over the series. And that's something that doesn't really happen in the regular season. You don't have a long game. The long game for the Stars is force him to play as often as possible and make his life miserable every time he touches the ice.
So if I had to think of one player, I had to think of Esa Lindell because it's funny that we both went with defensemen here because I already considered that Miro Heiskanen is going to have to play against Nathan MacKinnon and take that first line down of him, Mikko Rantanen, and Gabriel Landeskog. That those three guys, when they're all healthy and they're really good, that line is one of the best lines in the NHL. But what about their second line? I mean, you've got Nazem Kadri, who at 32 has almost, I think he's either over 100 points or very close to 100 points. You can double check me on that while I'm talking. But I mean, you've got other players who can score. You've got that guy. You've got Nazem Kadri. You got Cale Makar, who likes to play forward every once in a while and just find his way down in the offensive zone. I think he has over 20 goals on the season. You've got Alex Newhook, who's kind of come into his own as a rookie for the Colorado Avalanche. And you've also got I am Val Nichushkin in there too, who has had a pretty decent season for the Avalanche as well. So for me, it's got to be not just the first line, because I believe that first pairing of Heiskanen and Suter will be able to handle those top guys. But I'm especially scared about Nazem Kadri specifically because he's had one of the best seasons in his career. And we're going to have to really rely on other guys other than that top pairing to really shut guys down. And that pairing of Lindell and either Hockenpah or whoever else is with Lindell on that second pairing, I guess Klingberg, is really going to have to shut them down. So for me, it's Esa Lindell.
Check this stat out. Nathan MacKinnon, 88 points. Nazem Kadri, 87 points. Cale Makar, 86 points.
That's funny.
They are 18, 19, and 20th in the goal scoring race. Cale Makar quietly having an outrageous season. 28 goals and 58 assists. That is ridiculous.
Yep, the guy is an absolute apple machine. He knows how to pass the puck very well. And obviously
second highest scoring defenseman only behind Roman Josi.
Yeah, and Roman Josi is stupid. Do you see how many points he's had?
It's dumb.
It's like 95.
95.
I think he has like 26 or 27 goals.
Cale Makar has more goals than him.
Really? So it's just the amount of
goals.
assists. It's just the amount of assists that he has. That's stupid.
Josi has 23. He has 5 more goals.
Honestly, if Josi doesn't win, I'll say it again. I know I've said it a lot, but if he doesn't win the Norris, I will be very shocked. I will be extremely shocked if he does not win the Norris. But honestly, that's one of the things that we have to consider is that second line of the Colorado Avalanche. But let me go ahead and pull up this intangible for you too, Chris, because we talked about it a little bit, but I want to talk about it more in depth here. Does the Stars' recent success in the playoffs against the Colorado Avalanche, does that have any kind of goodwill towards the Stars, or is that bad will towards the Stars? Because you can look at it two different ways. You can look at it in the fact that the Stars have done it before. The Colorado Avalanche in 2020, yes, it was the bubble playoffs. Yes, it was COVID and everything, but they were still the same team and they were still a really good team. And the Stars were able to pull it out over that team. Now, on the other side, you could look at it and say, okay, Colorado is going to be really pissed off that they lost that series in the way that they did.
And they were on their third goalie.
Right, and on their third goalie on top of that. So, which way do you look at that? I'll go with the whole optimistic versus pessimistic view. Which way do you look at that, or does that any of that even make any sense?
I think it definitely helps the Stars just having that good mojo, being like, we've done it before, we can do it again. And a lot of these guys are the same guys. So maybe guys who played really well against Colorado look back on that.
We're looking at you.
Just have good juju and just figure it out on the ice. I mean, that really could happen. We see stats where guys play especially well against certain teams or they play especially well in certain buildings, and that stuff's real. Like that really happens. I don't know why, and I bet they can't explain it either, but people definitely play better when they're playing against certain teams.
So, oh my goodness, Alex keeping us up to date against in the game. It is currently 4-3. They're really gonna do it, aren't they? And all this talk about Colorado is
They've
gonna be
ruined our podcast. I will be so upset.
Well, it just means we get an opportunity to go over and do it again. But we could say this is a possible thing. So, but still, I think that's a really big. I still think it's going to be Colorado. I think it will be. All Nashville has to do is get to overtime. If they get the 1 point, they're playing Calgary. We're playing Colorado. So, anyways, guys, let's see.
I had one more tangible before we move on.
Okay, what else you got?
The Stars are a much better face-off team than the Colorado Avalanche. So that could be something that really plays into it. Let me pull up that stat. Let's see if I can actually get it right. Oh wait, I'm on skaters. Nope, can't pull it up. Sorry. But either way, Stars are like, I think they're second. Yeah, okay. I finally pulled it up. Stars are second now. They actually fell behind this as the season went along to Toronto. And Colorado is, where did they go? They're very bad. This is the one that they're bad in. My bad, guys. Colorado is 28th in faceoff percentage. So if the Stars can make these games like really choppy, cut them up, get some offensive zone faceoffs, not care about defensive zone faceoffs as much because we can win those, that could be a real advantage for us. Don't let guys like Nathan McKinnon, Kadri, or McCarr get into a flow. I mean, that can really affect some players.
It's funny that you talk about that because that's a good intangible that could be in favor of the Stars. Now here's another one that I can't tangible, intangible, whatever. Here's another thing that I was just literally just thinking about is the fact that the Stars' record in overtime in the regular season this year has been spectacular, and probably the reason why they're even in the playoffs. To be honest with you, if it weren't for overtime and the Stars winning a majority of their games in overtime, I don't think we make the playoffs. And I think that could be a good thing going into the playoffs, considering that the Stars, last year had a hard time with that. I think they can really lean on their experience in the regular season. And I know it's a different beast, but you're obviously kind of kind of about it. So let me know your thoughts. What do you think?
I guess I wanted to call you an idiot, but it kind of helps that we have guys that have that clutch gene, and it's been a lot of different guys too. If you think about it, we've had a bunch of different guys score in overtime, so that might kind of help. Just been there, done that. But man, 5-on-5 playoff overtime versus 3-on-3 5-minute overtime is just completely different. And I'm just afraid, like, you go to overtime like that, and Bones tries to like focus on defense, and we just get peppered nonstop. So I'm not sure exactly how much that'll help, but I'll give you a little credit. Having guys that have done it before will help a little bit at least.
Okay, I got one more question, and then we got to wrap it up for here tonight, and then we got to talk about what we're going to do for playoff preview and when we're going to do it so we can get that set too. If the Stars have a path to the Stanley Cup final and let's say they win the Stanley Cup, okay? Let's talk about a couple of things. First off, how are they going to play? who's going to be a person that steps up? And I'm not talking about, the big three, the new big three, I guess I should say. Who steps up? And you can't say Otter either, so it's got to be a forward or a defenseman.
What?
Okay,
I'm the most important position in sports.
I know. I'm trying to take away the easy stuff for you. And then, if the Stars have a path to the Stanley Cup, who do they go through, and how many games does it require for them to get there? So let's start with the first series. Let's assume the Stars win. How many games does it take?
7.
Okay, so it takes 7. Okay, in the next round, they would either be playing one of two teams. They would be either playing St. Louis or Minnesota in that series if they make the second round. Who would you? I think it's pretty obvious who we would want to see, but who would we play in that series, you think?
I want to see Minnesota. I don't want to see the Blues.
We've had really bad mojo when it comes to St. Louis. So
if we play either of them and we come off the high of beating Colorado and we're not too injured, we will win in 5 or 6 against whichever team we play.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Okay.
Because at that point, we're going to have to already be kicking on all cylinders to beat a team like that, and then you just got to keep rolling with it.
And that's a very good point. So assuming we make it to that point and we beat Colorado and we beat the Blues, we either are facing one of 4 teams there in the Pacific side of the Western
Definitely going to be Nashville.
So you think that
no,
so no matter what,
it's not going to be Nashville.
Oh, it's not going to be Nashville. Okay, I was like, are you for real? Because UC Saros doesn't look like he's coming back. So out of those 4 teams, you got Calgary, you got Edmonton, you've got the LA Kings, and you've got the Nashville Predators. Out of those 4 teams, who comes over and meets the Stars in the conference final?
It's probably going to be Calgary, but I hope it's Edmonton.
You hope it's Calgary, but you think it's going to be Edmonton.
No, I hope it's Edmonton, but
you hope it's
going to be Calgary. You flipped me, bro.
Flipped me. Sorry, I flipped it on you. So, and unfortunately, all those teams in the Pacific side just don't seem to have anything going for them other than Calgary. I mean, I know in Edmonton, Mike Smith has been good, but he's been at best streaky. He's 41, so I mean that's to be expected. And then you got LA, who is without Drew Doughty. Okay, Alex just mentioned it too. Alex saying would like to see LA, but without Doughty, I don't think they will make it. I don't even think they beat Edmonton, in my opinion.
They're not.
And then
that's a very likely sweep.
And I might have even said a couple of weeks ago that if Nashville was in that bracket on that side of the bracket, I could see them being the Pacific Division
totally
winner
could.
And beating those teams there. But without UC Saros, I just don't
without
see
Saros,
that.
no. Yeah.
So I think it's going to be Calgary. So assuming the Stars play Calgary in the conference final, how many games does it take and why?
5, because Calgary's bad. Overrated.
Really?
Yep.
Overrated. And here's the other thing about Calgary is that the Stars have, again, success against the Calgary Flames in the 2020 bubble playoffs. So that's another series that the Stars could look at and be like, okay, we've done it once before. Yes, we were the better, higher seeded team at that point, but we can still do this again. We can still be Calgary again. So, and the thing that makes Calgary scary for me is Jacob Markstrom more than anything. They've got a great, fantastic first line. They've got a solid defense, and then when you've got Jacob Markstrom, dang, that's a scary team. So, okay, so let's say that the Stars beat Calgary in 5. That's what you say. Who did the Stars play in the Stanley Cup final? On the
Carolina.
Carolina. Okay.
And they get spanked. Swept. Stanley Cup sweep.
Stanley Cup sweep in 4 games is what Chris says. So, all right, let's just say that the Stars win the Stanley Cup for the first time since '99. How many games does it take?
I don't know, man. 7, I guess.
7 against Carolina too.
Just the likelihood of this is just, oh man.
Very, very unlikely. I agree, but it's okay. That's the fun thing about the playoffs is that all of this is just.
Yeah.
I mean, it at this point, it's a clean slate. Florida is just as in it as the Stars are, and that's what's fantastic about the NHL playoffs. So here's the Stars' route to the Stanley Cup final, according to Chris. So Avalanche in 7. So Stars beat Avalanche in 7. Stars meet in the second round. Who did you say again?
I said, who did I say? I said Minnesota because I don't want to see St. Louis.
But you think it's going to be St. Louis?
No, Minnesota.
Okay, so you think Minnesota will beat St. Louis. Okay, and you said 6 in that one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and in the conference final, you said Calgary, and then the Stars would beat them in 5. And then you said for the Stanley Cup final that Carolina, and if we do beat Carolina, it's in 7. So you think that's the most likely outcome for the Stars to win the Stanley Cup here in 2022?
That's the most likely outcome, period.
Most likely outcome, period. So,
and the guys who have to play the best is going to be Ben and Sagan. The first line is going to play good, and other than Otter. Otter is obviously the key. Everybody's goaltender is the key. The goaltender is the most important player on the ice.
Maybe even Wedgwood, because if Otter kind of falters, Wedgwood's going to have to be asked to be good.
At this point, it's Otter. But
agreed.
Obviously, Otter is number 1. But other than that, the players who have to play good is Ben and Sagan. If they can get back to goal-scoring form and our first line keeps going, we're a deadly team. We really have a chance. But that is a gigantic if that has not been close to being correct.
So who wins the Conn Smythe if the Stars win the Stanley Cup?
Otter.
It has to be Otter. I agree. Otter has to be our best player in order for us to win the Stanley Cup this offseason. And he hasn't even had a real Stanley Cup playoff experience. And I don't count the bubble playoffs because I think he came in twice in relief, and the game was basically over anyways when he came in. So, I mean, it's been done before multiple times. I mean, you got Corey Crawford, who did it with the Hawks. You've also got Antti Niemi, Stars legend Antti Niemi, who did it when he was a rookie with the Chicago Blackhawks. You got Jordan Bennington, who came from the AHL and won the Stanley Cup and hadn't even played an NHL game until January of that same year. And then you've also got there was one more player that jumped off. Matt Murray, Matt Murray, in his first 2 NHL seasons for the Pittsburgh Penguins, led his team to the Stanley Cup final both times and won the Stanley Cup. So it's not like it's unheard of for a young goalie or a new goalie to the NHL to lead his team to the Stanley Cup finals. Can Otter do it? I guess we'll find out.
We'll see.
All right. That's going to do it for us here tonight, you guys. Thank you for joining us. We're going to call it quits here tonight. Please go and use the promo code THPN next time you go and use DraftKings Sportsbook. Please also go and use the website for our new merch store, StarCasterMarkShop.com. We really appreciate you guys doing that. And also, it seems to be a good luck charm for the Stars. Some of y'all have been wearing it under your Stars jersey. And we've been winning every single game. Y'all have been wearing those shirts. So let's keep that up. And that's the most effective and best way you can support our podcast and what we do here. And once again, we really do appreciate it. So, and if you've heard anything that you like here tonight, whether you like my sultry voice or you like Christian's stupid comments, please make sure you leave a comment down in the section down below. Leave us a review anywhere you listen to our podcast. We'd really appreciate that as well. Along with Chris, my name is Ryan, and we'll be back for you guys for the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll see you guys in about 3 or 4 days. GG, boys. Say it, Chris.
GG, boys.
I was waiting for you to say it. Good night, guys. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. Bye.